Hi, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today I'm reviewing Death Roads All-Stars, a game from the Knights of Unity, a game that is either on or shortly on Kickstarter, depending on when you're watching this video, link down below. Now, this is a prototype, so everything you see here, subject to change, rules will be updated, things will be added, components will be changed, all of the usual stuff for, well, a Kickstarter review. Now, Death Road All-Stars is effectively a game where you're trying to race against other players while blowing them up. This is called Death Roads All-Stars, not let's race prettily along a nice road together, All-Stars. Now in the game, you're going to win one of three ways, not four ways. One of three ways. Either one, you're the last person left alive. At any point when all other players are dead and you're the last person standing, you will win the game. Way two is at the end of round 3. There's 5 rounds in the game. Every round you're going to reveal an event that will do different things. Things like closing in the track, things like defining which roads are dangerous, where you should end up, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of round 3, you're going to reveal a card that's going to give you some sort of notable feat that you can achieve that will cause you to win. And way number 3 is going to be that if at the end of the 5th round, you are the last person, well, you're the person furthest ahead at the end of the 5th round, then you will win the game. Now, I've had all 3 wins happen in our games, but I would say the most common way that we've won the game is usually by being the last person left alive, at least for our games. Now, in the game, the general structure of the game is you're going to start the game by picking a car, a vehicle. You're going to pick the specific driver and their unique abilities and the way they play out. And then you're going to construct your deck. Your car is going to come with a bit of a pre-made deck that's going to define some attributes on it. But then from there, you're going to go ahead and choose from all these pretty piles of weapons and just try to figure out what weapons you want to add to your car. Because you're going to add 3 sets of weapons to your cars. Weapons come in sets, and I believe there's 21 sets currently. This is Kickstarter. I assume we'll see more, but I don't know for sure, so we'll see how that plays out. But basically 21 sets of weapons. A set is 2 cards. You're going to choose 1 middle, 1 front, and 1 rear weapon. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Pinball as my rear weapon, the Port Valley as my side weapon, and the Smoke and Mirrors as my front weapon. The Smoke and Mirrors and Smoke Trail as my front weapon. Now let's explain how these weapons work so you can get a general idea of how the weapons play out before I go through the rest of the game. Now, Smoke and Mirrors is going to basically define where the target zones on the card and what happens there. So you can see Smoke Trail over here is going to affect the 3 zones behind you to the left and right of your car, and then it's going to negatively affect their handling. Handling is going to be effectively your action points in the game. So if this car currently played Smoke Trail, it would be affecting both the blue and the green cars, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, affecting all those zones and dealing 3 handling, reducing their handling by 3 for both of them, which is, if you're in the lead, it's great to reduce other players' action points. It's going to cost you 3 action points, it's going to affect those zones, and that's the effect of the weapon. That general structure, cost, zones, and effect is going to be true for all cards. Speaking of which, the Starboard Volley, and the Portside Volley are going to basically be the exact same thing to 2 different directions with your mounted weapons. So, for example, if the green car had that card and it played the Portside Volley, I don't know why I'm saying Valley, the Portside Volley, then it'll go ahead and deal 7 damage to the blue card because it's within range 2, although actually you can do it up to within range 3 as well and still hit that vehicle. And then lastly, we're going to have the Pinball. Pinball over here is going to be one of 2 different zones, again, depending on which one you do. And it's going to go ahead and cost different amounts as well. The costs can vary depending on the cards. But you can see over here, this one costs 5, but fits 3 zones. The 8-ball costs 2, hits 1 zone, so much more targeted, but much cheaper. And what it's going to do is going to do damage to the car, and it's going to cause them to swerve. Causing cars to swerve is fun in this game. I'll explain more about swerving later. So, you're going to take those cards, you're going to go ahead and shuffle them up with your deck of cards. So you're going to go ahead and shuffle up. Let's pretend I am green. We're going to go ahead and shuffle these cards up. Let's do a little riffle shuffle. And then you're going to go to the turn structure. So everyone's going to construct their deck, choose their things, put them together, and then they're going to go ahead and draw 5 cards, and then go one at a time taking actions. Because the way a round plays out is effectively players are going to go ahead and play cards and take actions on their player boards while reducing their handling to pay for that cost. So actions on your player boards will generally have a handling cost and then involve discarding a card. So again, the cards and your handling are the 2 resources you're playing with here. Versus actions on the cards are just going to cost handling, but you can see just in my hand alone, if I played Portside Volley and Smoke and Mirrors, that's already going to cost me 9 handling, which is already almost all my action points. So you can see how it's a little bit of a balance of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what's going to be the best results for you while you try to survive this death race. From there, general concepts that are worth noting are going to be each vehicle is going to have health as well as 3 sheets of armor. So you're going to have 3 sheets of armor, 3 times you can reset your health to the top while also getting a benefit as you get hit. So every time you get hit, every time your armor sheet comes off, you get a little bit of a benefit. You're going to have your handling. Now your handling is notable because this person has 8 action points, but they could arguably have more. When you are lower down over here, if I'm by 3 and I play that 6 cost card, I will go lower than my actual action threshold, but bad things will happen. All these things over here are when you're exerting your car. It's going to cause you to swerve, take damage, take various stun tokens. It's going to have all kinds of bad things as you take more and more cards when you don't have the action to pay for them. So you could spend more than you have, but it might get messy for you. From there, you're going to have your gear shift. Your gear shift is going to be something you can slowly up throughout the game. So you see this character over here, Hard Rock. She can go ahead and pay three of her action points, and she's going to discard a card, and then she can go forward 1 space. That symbol's going to be go forward 1 space and up her gear shift. Or she can go backwards 2 spaces and down her gear shift. Every player is going to have different ways that they manipulate their gear shift. But the gear shift is an important aspect of the game because various cards, let's see if we can find one in my hand. Let's say this card over here, this Tokyo Drift over here is going to be a stronger card the higher your gear shift is. So it's on gear 2, you can move side to side and draw a card. On gears 3 and 4, you can move side, forward, back, or left, that's that symbol, and then draw a card. And when you're on gear 5, you get 2 movements in any direction, which gives you a lot of flexibility in this game. That movement, you know, you play a Tokyo Drift and follow it up with the port side volley, you can do some real damage to people in this game. That's going to be the general structure of the game. So you go round and around, utilizing your handling, playing your cards until you run out, at which point you draw back up to 5. And once all players have run out, because a player can be going multiple times in a row if other players have run out of handling before them, but once all players have run out, you're going to draw back up to 5 cards, discarding any cards left in your hand if you want to, or holding onto them if you want to, and then rinse and repeat the cycle until eventually either the 5th round is done, someone has won that way, or the 3rd round is done, and potentially someone gets its victory points in either the 4th or 5th round, the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, or alternatively, you are the last person standing. That is primarily Death Road's All-Stars. A few things we're going to touch as well, few small things. First of all, it's going to be swerving. Swerving's a big part of this game because it's a lot of fun. Not fun for the person swerving, to be very clear. Fun for the people watching him swerve. So, let's pretend I've got to my gear shift up to 4, because up to 4 is awesome. I'll be able to do more stuff, more powerful cards, that's great. And then that person goes ahead and plays that Wrecking Ball card on me. Let's pretend I'm over there. This person plays the Wrecking Ball card directly on me, smashing my card, causing my card to swerve. Let's play it out. Whenever you swerve, which will happen either through effects from other players, or when you reduce your handling below your threshold, so if you ever get down there, you're going to swerve, you got to be careful. Basically, swerving is worse the faster your car is going, which makes sense, right? So let's go ahead and shuffle up this swerve deck and go ahead and play out a swerve. Option 1, we're going to play 4 cards right now because we're at level 4. So, the card's going to shift there, boom, okay? 2, the card's going to go backwards and take damage, okay? That's not great. Then again, car's going to go backwards. Ooh, going backwards here. When you're at the end of the track and you go backwards, you're going to take the damage shown. 4 damage. Ouch. Okay, that's not great. We're going to go down from 7 to 3. And then we reset in any zone we want. And we'll do it one more time. And then again, we go down a gear and shift to the left. So gear shifts, effectively, swerving is going to basically be the way of you completely lose control of your car and you swerve all over the place based on this deck. It can sometimes have moments where it actually helps you, which is cool. Other times, and I would argue most of the time, it's going to negatively affect your plans as you move backwards, forward, left, right. I don't believe there's an up in here. I think you only go left, right, and backwards. Let's see. Yeah, you can only go backwards, left, and right. Still can situationally be beneficial depending how it plays out, but you will not get forward movement from that action. Other things worth noting, there's going to be tokens for being stunned or for being burned, which are going to be, again, actions you'll see from either cards or from your board over there. Just ways of doing other consequences in the game, from damage to making you draw more cards, to making you discard an extra card when taking an action, things like that. And that is primarily the core idea of Death Road's All-Stars. Few other small things. We're not getting into everything. Things like pushing people into the sides of the board where they're going to lose handling and they're going to take damage. Things like if you end your turn on one of these lanes, that little time marker means if you end your turn there, then you'll shift backwards. Think of these as the rougher road at the end of the racetrack. So if you end there, then you're kind of just like backwards. You can get the general idea. And then rinse and repeat until someone ultimately wins the game. Now, you didn't get to see the game play out, which is a little bit of a shame because the game playing out is the fun part of this game. Death Road's All-Stars is a game where you build your deck, you develop your character, you pick your character, pick your car, build your deck, and then just proceeds to smash people in the face and be smashed in the face until the game is over. This game is surprisingly fun. We'll get into the surprisingly part of my final thoughts, but it is surprisingly fun. This game has powers and abilities, which to begin with I like. It's going to have building your deck and choosing your construction of weapons. Choosing, do you think you're going to be ahead the whole game? Do you want to get primarily weapons that will target people behind you, keeping you in the lead? Well, if you go too heavily that strategy, then, and you don't get in the lead, you're going to have a hard time doing anything useful. So you kind of want a balance of weapons. Weapons that will help you from the front, the rear. The side is more situational, but can be incredibly impactful, especially as people pull up next to you, hoping to do something to you, and you just go bam, smashing them into the sidebar, doing some damage and other things like that. Potentially manipulating your own car as well. Sometimes you can end up pushing yourself away, which can be helpful as well. Lots of different options in terms of how you construct your character, your car, your character, and your deck that will give you a lot of control over what's going on. The art and miniatures, the art in general is great. The board's kind of dry. It works. It does the job exactly what I want. The art on the cars, the character, the miniatures. Again, I hope these are in the final Kickstarter version. This is a prototype. I imagine they're using these sculpts. The cars are great. I like the character they each bring, and they each come to the table with their own stats. You may or may not have noticed, but they each have potentially different health, different handling, different damage when they get hit, they have the same gear, but they have different decks as well. So lots of differences to the ways each car plays out. Each one is going to feel like a different vehicle. The gear system really works in this game. The gear system gives you a lot of stuff you want to push that gear forward, because most of the general handling cards in the game will be better the higher your gear is. Look, that card's better the higher I am. That card's better the higher I am. Basically, all the starting cards that your car has are better and let you do more things the more stuff the higher your gear is. So you want to get that gear up. But if you do get the gear up, you're going to have less flexibility on going over your handling, because if you're at gear 5, you do not want to be swerving. And that also means that other players who have swerving abilities will really mess with you in this game. So that gear system works well. The health and stamina system as well work well. The health is a basic system where you have, 8, 9 health, whatever it is you have in the car, depending on the vehicle. But then when you get to the end, you basically reset and start again. And you can actually time that well. If you get down to, let's say, 2, and you take a 4 damage attack, that armor acts as a breakpoint. That 4 damage is going to stop, and then you'll reset to full health. So you can time yourself well, even potentially taking damage yourself in ways that will get you down to the end, making that 6 damage attack that someone's going to play just less fun, because they're only actually going to do 1 damage to you. So the health system works well there. The handling system, like I said, gives you action points, but action points attached to a degree of risk and choice that you can make in this game. If you're on a lower gear, taking a little swerve action, usually not the worst thing. If I'm on gear 3 over there, let's pretend I'm on gear 2. Because I'm a little nervous of it, gear 3. And I'm the red car over here. Let's go ahead and do a gear 2 action. Boom and boom. Okay, great. I moved to the sideways and I took 2 damage. Not the best, but arguably worth the extra action points I got out of it. So there is a fun balance in the gear system that's at play here. This game is a very much in-your-face game. It's a game where you're going to constantly be attacking others and being attacked by others, because being in the lead has one primary advantage. In fact, one thing I did not tell you that is absolutely essential is when you move up on a track, the symbols here show you on the board, everyone who's not in your lane. So let's pretend right now, let's pretend this character over here moved up, then every other character that wasn't in his lane moves backwards, and that means that people at the end of the track take damage. So the main reason you want to move up is to push others back, which is going to help you stay in the lead, and potentially if at the end of the track they will take damage and you can kill or hurt them, which is fun. But past that, being in the lead in this game also makes you vulnerable to a lot of different attacks in this game. Everyone's constantly targeting the person in the lead. Everyone's constantly targeting, they're trying to get ahead, and there's a lot of ways you can get ahead of this game. It is not a game where someone in the back is ultimately going to lose a lot. It's a game where you can easily jump ahead, you can easily play a card or 2, get ahead, and then this person can choose to target you, or target that jerk who's constantly pushing people back. So to a certain extent, you are aligned in targeting the person who's likely currently winning right now. You take that person out of the running, especially if they're in the front. You do not want them constantly shoving forward as they just knock you back and cause you damage. So you are aligned in that common goal. You can waste your action hitting each other, or you can drive a little bit further and do some sort of attack that attacks him, and boom, he's gone. So there's lots of attacking each other, and not alliances per se, but alliances that will develop in the course of just everyone trying to survive together. This game doesn't have any pulling ahead in that sense, because like I said, you're just going to take that people down, and it's going to self-balance to that degree, and everyone always is in the game. And the variability in this game is off the charts. The drivers they have, the cars they have, the weapons you're going to build, the events, the cards, the maps. There's actually, we didn't even talk about it, there's another map on the other side over here that is more of a dirt road map that gives you a center lane that's going to push you back, but 2 side lanes, which results in a totally different gameplay as people are constantly trying to shift back and forth over that center divide without ever ending on the center divide, because it's going to pull them back. So there's a lot of variability in the game in the way it's actually going to play out. As far as things I didn't like in the game, there's really going to be 2 small things I didn't love. Well, one's bigger than the other. The first is going to be each car comes with its own starter deck of cards that I kind of wish I could build that as well. Now, it's self-balanced to a degree. It's a small little nitpick, but the game is basically going to give you a car and then the deck that comes with the car, which is fine. But when I'm picking my weapons, I kind of wish I could pick my movement and have a little more control over that. Now, you could by looking at the deck that is associated with the car, but I wish I had more movement abilities that I could choose, because it often feels in the game that I pick the car based off the stats, and then I pick the weapons based off how cool the weapons are. I kind of want to pick the movement as well based on how cool they are, and maybe that will happen more as I learn the game better and recognize which car has which deck. For right now, I just pick the car that I want to play with, even if I've picked a different car every time I've played so far. But yeah, so that's gonna be a small nitpick there. Very small nitpick. I would argue a bigger thing in this game is this game does have player elimination. Now don't get too scared off yet. In fact, I debated putting player elimination in my category of things I can see others not liking. The reason I didn't is because while it's not a big deal for me, it is something that is a strike against the game, absolutely. This is a game where last person standing wins, so you have to factor that in, that as you're playing the game, eventually someone gets their last plate of armor removed, and they're gone, they're dead, they're out, and they're watching you play in the game, which is a little bit frustrating. Now, it's not a lot frustrating because they actually have been tracking. Like, I remember the first time I played it was on TTS with Knights of Unity, and as soon as the first person was eliminated, they started a little timer, because they've been tracking the stats for the game to ensure that in this game, people are not out for a long time. I believe they said the average is roughly around 10 minutes, so the last 10 minutes of the game could have a degree of watching for that first player eliminated. And again, it's going to depend on the player count. If you're playing a 3-player game, then only one person's on the sidelines watching. If you're playing a 4-player game, then 2 people will be on the sidelines watching until you eventually get to that close. But yeah, so it can have a degree of player elimination with somebody having to either watch or be on their phone or be a little less invested in the game towards the end. It has not been a problem for me in terms of the fact that I still like this game a lot despite that, but it absolutely is a small ding against the game. Now, I wonder, I haven't talked to them about this, I wonder if there's a way to keep the players that are eliminated included, or perhaps even just the first player eliminated, because there'll be a bigger gap in the first player than subsequent players. But if there might be a way to keep that player included in the game by potentially giving them some sort of event deck and keeping them involved in the game. Because you have to do this well, because if you just give them a general event deck and things they can do, they may end up being a kingmaker to the game. Versus if you make some sort of situation where the person who's out of the game gets an event deck, and if no other player wins, then they actually become the winner, the first player eliminated. There might be a way to self-balance it where they're kind of incentivized to keep everyone out. I don't know, just general thoughts, but that player elimination is a small strike against the game, but not a big thing either way. As far as what other things you're not liking, this game, and this is a big warning, pay attention to this part, this game absolutely is more fun than strategy. Don't get me wrong, you are making decisions left, right, and center in this game. You're making decisions from the characters you choose, from the cards you implement, from where to spend your handling. There's a lot of agency in this game. But all the agency in the world won't help you when someone else goes ahead and plays a mortar behind you and smashes your car out of the lead. There's a lot of destruction in this game. There's a lot of players messing with you. There's a lot of events in this game that will force things around. You're going to take damage left, right, and center. Now, I'm not saying the most strategic player won't win. I would argue they probably will. But I would argue they're going to win a decent amount of time and get hit by just a lot of people doing damage to you the rest of the time. This is a strategy game that plays like a party game. It's a game where you're laughing together as people get blown up. You're laughing as your car gets smashed. You're laughing as you smash other people's cars. It is a game where you can and should play tactically, but that may or may not be enough to save you as a whole bunch of people unleash their weapons on you because you're currently winning the game. So factor that in terms of deciding if this is a game for you. And speaking of which, this is a game where you can get ganged up on. Now, ideally, when you get ganged up on, you're getting ganged up on because you're in the lead. Ideally, in your group, that's what's happening. They recognize someone else might win. They all target the person in the lead. But sometimes, either because just situationally where a weapon's positioned, where you can't otherwise do damage to someone else, but you could hurt that guy, or alternatively just because you're not paying enough attention to who you should or shouldn't be attacking, then it can also happen that someone who's losing can get ganged up as well. So that is something you want to be mindful of in the game. You can have a whole bunch of people attacking you, and while most of the time it's fun, if you end up being eliminated earlier in the game because a whole bunch of people ganged up on you, it's not quite as much fun. And then lastly, I would say there are some small fiddly rules in the game. Most of the game is fairly streamlined, but there's some small little exceptions of, well, when this happens, if that causes this, if that car is eliminated, then you stop the action. There's a lot of small little fiddly exceptions to the rules that are essential to actually making the game work properly and balanced and not be overly attacking or hurtful in different ways, but there are small fiddly exceptions just to be mindful in an otherwise fairly streamlined game. Ultimately, as far as final thoughts for Death Roads, Death Roads All-Stars is a game that for me is a 4 to 5. Now, my rating system in general, rating system down below, but a big part of my rating system that I've started adding recently is the idea that I rate a game not just based on where it is, but based on where I expected it to be. And that to that end, on my 5-point scale, Death Roads is a 4/2. When I first heard about this game, I thought what many of you are probably thinking as well. This is a racing game with cars and just doing damage to people and a whole bunch of just cards and cars and damage and weapons and things. Sounds like the kind of thing that would be fun in theory, but not work in execution. Or maybe that's my own bias, but that's what I certainly thought. And playing this game is an absolute blast. I thought this game would not be for me. I was like, great, let's play it on TTS first. I don't want to get a prototype of the game because I have no interest in really playing your game, but I'll play it on TTS with you. I did. And it's a lot of fun, and I'm very happy I did. This game is just so much fun. I'd love to see more for the game. I'd love to see some sort of terrain expansion where terrain is coming on the map. Now, it might be tricky to do because the map simulates a constantly moving racetrack as opposed to a static track with a circle and whatnot. It's simulating the constant movement of the board. So I wonder how it can actually be done, but I'd love to see just more for the game. I want more weapons, more characters, more vehicles, more everything, because right now, my biggest complaint about the game, well, I mean, I covered my didn't likes already, but I just want more. There's 21 weapons in the game, 21 weapon sets that you can add to your car. I want 50 weapon sets. Now, I'm not actually assuming I'll get 50, but whatever it is I can get, I'll take. I want more variety, more things, more fun, interesting ways that you can build out your car, develop your engine, and then head onto the racetrack to attack and smash other players. Deathblows All-Stars is a very fun game. If you like the idea of just loading up your car with weapons and smashing into your opponents or your friends or whoever, then this might be a game for you. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.